What's up, Trainiacs? Welcome to this week's Triathlon News Day Tuesday, where we have one of the most exciting weeks of racing ever. In this week's edition of Tri News Day, it gets easier for women to make it to Half Ironman World Championships. Pro triathletes are pulling out of races, and we have one of the most, unfortunately, but kind of cool to watch, dramatic finishes in racing that I have seen in a long time. It's good. It's good today. Welcome, triathletes, to this week's Triathlon News Day Tuesday, where every single Tuesday we share news from all around the triathlon world, as long as I'm not traveling, which I will be next week, and as long as there is news to talk about. But that wasn't an issue this week because we've got a lot to talk about. Let's get right into it. Just know that full links to everything we talk about are in the description below. Let's start off with Ironman announcing that 20 races from all around the world will have 500 additional spots earmarked to women. This is part of the Women in Tri initiative that is going to make it easier for females from around the world to make it to Half Ironman Worlds in Taupo in 2020. This is in New Zealand. Now, this is important, and for the men out there that might be saying like, hey, why can't I make it? Well, it actually is so skewed towards men that 75% of the field in the average Half Ironman event are males. So we need to encourage more females to come into the event and take part in our great sport. So I think that this is fantastic. The full list of these 20 races that it will be easier for females to get to Worlds is in the description below. Next, Cody Beals announced last week that he is going to have to pull out of Challenge Roth due to the Achilles injury that he's been dealing with for quite some time. Now, pro triathletes, they enter and withdraw from races all the time. There's nothing really terribly new here, besides the fact that Cody is really quite open and honest with everything. And having seen him evolve over the past 18 months, going from 2018 being an amazing year, breakout year, basically a career-changing kind of year, to this year being very banged up, I wanted to talk about this because it's a really good reminder for us age group athletes that we have to be very careful. Pro triathletes have to straddle that fine line between performance and injury because it's what their career is based on. News day. Bye. In our case, it's not. We have to put health first and foremost in all the training that we do, because what we do is a very precarious thing. It is borderline unhealthy. It's so extreme, and we see that with a lot of athletes getting banged up. Us amateur triathletes don't have to go that deep to the well. Health first and foremost. And good luck to Cody Beals. We want to see you back performing really well as soon as possible, but take all the time you need. The husband of a woman who unfortunately passed away at Half Ironman Mont Tremblant as a result of a bike vehicle crash right at the end of the bike leg has spoken out against the organizing committee. Originally, the organizing committee led him to believe that his wife was suffering at the time, potentially nutritionally, potentially just physically, potentially from a heart condition, and swerved into traffic, getting hit. Now, the coroner just on Wednesday ended up informing him that the cause of death was impact from the vehicle crash and that there were no signs of distress. Now, this man has spoken out about what went on at the event and the safety of the roadway. And what I can say is Ironman is expanding so very quickly. What we're seeing, I think, unfortunately, is that there are a lot of locations that are being selected that might not have a culture of road safety. We're seeing a lot more people get hit by cars, a lot more people drowning during the swim, a lot more people with cardiac events. We need to respect the thing that we're trying to do. It's extreme, so we've got to be very careful and conscious of where we are at every point in the race. Now, it is time to get into some of the most intense racing that we have seen in a long time, but first...
This video is brought to you by the Magic 5, my swim goggles, and pro triathlete Ben Canute's swim goggles. The Magic 5 makes swim goggles that are custom fit to your beautiful face. Just download their app, 3D scan your face, and order a set of goggles with the gasket custom molded to your exact eye socket. The Magic 5 goggles fit without leaks or having to smash those goggles into your eyes, and you will have more viewing area than you've ever had with any other set of goggles before. Check them out at themagic5.com.
Let's start off with the World Triathlon Series. This is the pinnacle of short course racing. This is the series that occurs over the course of the entire year and goes towards the overall short course world champion being crowned at the end of the year. In Montreal, a sprint distance WTS race occurred. And what happened at the end was very unexpected. Jelle Greens ended up going toe-to-toe at the end with probably the best runner in short course triathlon, Mola, who has historically been like cream of the crop, best short course triathlete in the world, whereas Jelle has not been even in the top 10 of a WTS race in 2 years. Well, Mola finished 1 second behind Jelle at the end. In addition to that, Tyler Mislawchuk, local boy from just 20 minutes that way, ended up writing history, being the first Canadian to ever get on the podium in a World Triathlon Series race. And I don't want to take a lot of credit for it, but he was here for a training camp for the past 2 weeks, and we swam in lanes side by side with each other. So you're welcome, Tyler, and congratulations. Now, there were 8 Ironman and half Ironman events being held all around the world, so we've got to race through everything and just focus on the pro races, unfortunately, but let's dive into it. Half Ironman Finland was won by Daniel Bekkegaard, name problem, and India Lee, while full Ironman France was won by James Kunama and Kerry Lester. Half Ironman Steelhead was won by Jackie Herring and Andrew Starkowitz, and close to my heart, half Ironman Coeur d'Alene was won by Tim Reed and Heather Jackson. But the main drama for the weekend was at the European Ironman Championships in Frankfurt. This, on the men's side, featured one of the most premier showdowns that we've seen in ages, with Jan Frodeno, Sebastian Kienle, and Patrick Lange towing the line together. Patrick Lange, unfortunately, ended up dropping way back in the race after suffering a flat on the bike. Jan Fordeno ended up nearly out of the race by biking off course when he took a turn too fast and ended up in the bushes. Sebastian Kienle had to take a medical time out, which you don't really get. You just have to sit down while medical deals with you in transition 2 to get a piece of glass that had been in his foot for a long time removed. Jan Frodeno, instead of racing away from Sebastian in transition 2 while this was going on, actually came back to look at him and see how he was doing. In the end, Jan Frodeno ended up then going on to win the event, running in 36 degrees Celsius weather, almost 100 degree Fahrenheit weather, and it was so intense that he was basically sidelined on the ground for minutes, like 20, 30 minutes after the race, while Sebastian Kienle had to dip his head in a bucket of ice water. It was so hot that Sarah True, pal of the show, who we were really rooting for, was racing at the front with a huge lead. Then 900 meters from the finish line, while she had a 7-minute lead on Skye Mensch, ended up blacking out and not actually finishing the race. That's how intense this was. Skye Mensch went on to win, and we talked to Sarah yesterday. she's doing okay. She's got a bit of a jelly head, as she said, had a hard time remembering anything from the last 5 kilometers before she passed out, but she's very overwhelmed by the outpouring of support that she's received from all around the world, and she has talked to 6-time Ironman world champion Mark Allen about how to race in the heat, because this is the 3rd race in a row between Kona, Cannes, and Frankfurt that when she's gone to a hot weather race, she's either blacked out or not remembered big chunks of the race. So we wish her well, and hopefully she can somehow get to Kona. Now, in the podcast, just for a quick update before we get on with things, we just released a podcast with Chris Lieto, who was a former 2009 Ironman 2nd place finisher at Kona. And I think his perspective on the sport, having been at the very elite top end of the field and then basically being out of the sport very quickly, however, living in Kona has given him a perspective that really nobody we've ever talked to has. He's also released a new coaching offering that, in my opinion, there's nothing like it around the world. So we had a really interesting chat with him. We also just recorded a conversation with Rudy Vaughn, who beat Javier Gomez 2 weeks ago at the Half Ironman European Championships. And Rudy grew up about 45 minutes from the Half Ironman World Championship in Nice, France this coming summer. The race course there is like in his backyard. So he gave us the rundown of the swim, the bike, the run, everything you need to know about how to train for and approach that course. So make sure you are subscribed to the Triathlon Taren podcast for when that comes out. It is the most highly ranked triathlon podcast in the world on iTunes. And you know what? At that, we are actually not going to share a story from the Trainiac community because this was so long. But if you want to get your story shared here on Triathlon Newsday, please email them in with some pictures of the race at Taren@triathlontaren.com. We've only got a couple at the moment, so odds are yours will get shared. And a lot of people find these stories from everyone out there very, very motivating. So tell us how triathlon has affected your life. And if you like Triathlon Newsday and you aren't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button below. Later, Trainiacs. I'm leaving for Roth tomorrow.